Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Cult, and it's from Cryptozoic Entertainment. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. You can do so by following the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Now, Cult is a competitive worker placement game for 2 to 5 players. You and the other players each take control of, well, as the name implies, a cult. It might be a cult to one of the great old ones like Cthulhu, or an old Egyptian god like Anubis, those types of old deities. But in any event, you're trying to vie for control of a city by, having followers, sending your priests out into the city, trying to build altars, these types of things. But of course, it is a worker placement game, so every location out on the main city map is going to have a different special ability that you need to use to your advantage. And it's all in service of summoning this great elder deity to bring havoc and chaos to the world in your favor, of course. Now, before we go any further, let me go ahead and give you a look at how the game plays with a prototype version of the game. So a lot of what you see here may end up looking just like this in the final version, but there may be some changes, so you do need to be aware of that. And then, it's just as a matter of fact, some of the follower pieces are going to look much nicer in the final version, that type of thing. But in any event, we'll take a look, then we're going to come back and we will discuss it further. Cult is a competitive game for 2 to 5 players. Each player controls a different cult that is vying for control of a city. They'll need to use their priests and their deities' special abilities wisely in order to attract more followers and more power. The game ends when one player meets one of the 3 victory conditions, either having 5 altars dedicated to your cult, 4 fanatical mobs under your control, or performing the summoning twice. We'll get to all that. Set up the game by laying out the game board. The board is broken up into 13 distinct locations, and every cult will need to manipulate these locations during the game in order to win. A deck of miracle cards is placed in the ruins, a deck of intrigue cards is placed in the nobility district, and a deck of license cards are placed in the palace, and you will also flip over 3 of those into the same location to make a market. Players choose a cult sheet, either randomly or by agreement, and place it in front of them, light side up. Cults have different deities that they worship. Every cult has a divine might rating in the top corner, and a light side and a dark side. Each card lists all of the cult's special abilities, most of which require either removing or destroying priests, cards, or followers. The abilities and divine might on the dark side are different and more powerful. Every player chooses a color and takes a set of priest tokens, consisting of 3 regular priest tokens of strength 1, 2, and 3, and 1 patriarch token, whose strength is always equal to the number of followers you have and may never be destroyed. The rest of everyone's priests are kept in the reserves for now. Speaking of followers, those are also mostly kept in the reserve, though each cult starts with 2 in their color. Lastly, everyone gets 5 coins, with the rest in reserve, along with fanatical mob tokens for later use. Decide who goes first in the first round by determining whose cult has the highest divine might. After that, it's determined by who previously won control of the highest numbered location. Every round of the game is broken down into 2 phases. During each phase, each player will take turns in clockwise order. The first phase is the intention phase. Players will take turns placing one of their available priests on a location in order to vie for control of it and use its special ability. There are limitations on this. First, placing priests on high-level locations requires an escalating amount of followers. The first 3 locations require any amount, but locations 4 through 6 require at least 1 follower, 7 through 10 require 3, 10 and 11 require 5, and 12 and 13 require 7. The second caveat is that simply placing a priest may not be enough to actually use the location. If other players place priests in the same area, you must win out in a contest of strength and influence against the other player's priests. Whoever clearly has the most influence will be able to resolve the location in the next phase. In this phase, you may place 3 priests with no penalty, but if you decide to put more priests out, each additional one requires sacrificing a follower back to the reserve if you can. You may instead pass at any time. Passing drops you out of this phase completely, but if you have 1, 2, or 3 angry mobs on the board as compensation, you get to activate location abilities of either 1 through 3, 4 through 6, or 7 through 9, respective to how many mobs you have controlled. You also get to make deals when you pass. There are 2 types of deals. First, you can sell intrigue cards back to the bottom of the deck for the printed value in coins. Second, you can use coins to purchase license cards from the market, placing them face up in front of you. License cards give your cult permanent abilities that are public knowledge to all. All licenses permanently increase your Patriarch's strength by a certain amount. Title cards give you permanent access to locations even if you don't meet the follower requirements. Approval cards prevent loss of followers from placing priests after the third. Community cards let you use the ability of a certain location even if you lost the battle there. And tithes let you tax certain locations when your opponents try to place priests there. After everyone has passed and resolved their deals, it's time for the resolution phase. Starting from location 1 and going all the way down to location 13, every location that has at least one priest or altar is checked to see who gets to resolve it. If you have the most influence there, you win and resolve the location. However, when that number comes up, every player may take one action to help their position before determining the winner, which is either playing a miracle card, playing an intrigue card, or using one ability from your cult sheet. You can take one of these actions even if you're not involved in the conflict and just want to do it for other purposes. Miracle cards give you strictly beneficial abilities, like a free priest placement, moving a priest, increasing a placed priest's strength, gaining followers or coins, and creating altars or mobs. Miracle cards with a dark seal in the top corner can only be played when your cult sheet is on the dark side. We'll get to that later. Intrigue cards have negative effects on your opponents, and there are a wide variety of them. You can take opponents' coins, decrease the strength of priests or remove them entirely, steal or remove cards, and even remove fanatical mobs. After that, competing players add the strength of their priests in the area to the strength of their altars, if any, and see who comes out on top, with ties going to the cult with the highest divine might on their sheet. Losing players who had influence there will get up to 3 coins as compensation, which is dependent on the location. Now, let's go through each location. The ruins allow you to draw 1 miracle card. The Thieves District allows you to pay 3 to 13 coins and immediately move one of the priests that you place there, along with those coins, to another location of the corresponding number of coins that you paid, and automatically win the location and use its ability. The Slums simply gives you a follower from the reserve. The Forum lets you take the Supremacy card. So long as you have it, your Patriarch Priest has +7 influence, and you may completely skip around to gain one of the powerful listed abilities, which represents your followers celebrating. The Temple District lets you either take a new priest of strength 1 or replace one of your current priests with one of the next strength level up to 5. The Trade District simply nets you 6 coins from the reserve. The Artisan District lets you turn one of your regular priests already on the board into an altar by flipping it over, fixing it in place and giving you permanent presence and 4 strength there. Only 1 altar is allowed per location, and because a priest must be present, resolving this location in a normal way means only locations 7 through 13 could have an altar. But you can build altars in the lower numbered locations if you have control of 3 mobs and can use this location ability for free, or if you have miracle cards that let you do it. At the Academy, you can pay 5 coins to increase one of your free priests' strength by 2, or 11 coins to increase it by 4. The Port lets you pay either 5 coins for 2 followers or 11 coins for 4 followers. The Palace lets you take a face-up license card at no cost if there are any still left in the round. The Nobility District lets you draw 2 intrigue cards, then put 1 back on top of the deck. The Guard Quarters allows you to lose 2 followers to gain a fanatical mob token and place it on your sheet. And finally, the Rift of Darkness. Here, you may attempt to summon your deity. In order to successfully summon, your influence here must be at least equal to your divine might. Otherwise, even if you win the location, nothing happens. If successful the first time, you get to flip your cult sheet to its much more powerful dark side. Then, if you try to summon again, and your sheet is already on its dark side, you instead completely summon your deity to the world, and you win the game outright. After resolving a location, the priests assigned there are freed up for you to use again, but altars stay fixed in place. Once all locations with player presence on them are resolved, the phase and the round ends. Check to see if someone has met a win condition. Again, either 5 altars in the city, 4 fanatical mobs, or 2 successful summonings. If not, dump the remaining stock of license cards from the market, if any, then replenish back to 3. determine the new first player based on who won the highest location in the previous round, and then begin a new round. That is Cult. Well, worker placement games are a dime a dozen, but ones that have you taking control of a cult that is trying to, bring murder and mayhem to a city and take control of it for yourself, that is a bit rarer, I would say. The other thing is that while it is a worker placement game, how it all pans out is much different than most of the other games that are out there, where it's not just you're passively putting a marker out onto a location and saying, yeah, I'll get to do that just because I came first in turn order. Now you are actively, essentially battling for control of these areas. I mean, it's kind of abstracted out to where you're just trying to gain influence via your followers or your priests that you put out there who need the power of your followers. But you're essentially battling for those spots. Whoever has the highest influence, the highest strength in that area or location is going to be able to use it. The other players just get a pittance of coins. So it's very important that you, if you really want a location, you have to be aggressive and go all in for it, or at least have cards, the miracle cards, the intrigue cards, the power of the licenses that you can gain control of that are going to help swing the tide or in your favor, so to speak. So those are all very important things you need to worry about. It's not just a matter of you putting something out there. You need to be constantly worrying about whether you're actually going to get to use that location or not. And there's all these different mitigating factors. I mean, first of all, there's 3 different ways to win the game. So how you play is going to be entirely dependent on, and what you go for ultimately is dependent on the deity that you have control of with your cult, because the higher the divine might of your cult, the harder it's going to be to win by summoning, because that means you need to have even more influence there just to perform the summoning ritual. Whereas a weaker, quote-unquote, deity who has, or cult that has a lower divine might is going to be able to do the summoning much easier and faster, and even putting aside the fact that they can win by doing it twice, getting over to the dark side of your sheet makes you extremely powerful, especially against players who have not yet flipped their sheet. There's lots of abilities that say, hey, use this ability, destroy like fanatical mobs or priests of players who have not flipped over to their dark side yet. So that's a very important thing. You could go for the altar victory, which just means you need to be constantly pumping out priests in order to turn them into altars. You had to make sure to focus on the locations that let you build altars, the locations that let you, or the cards that let you build altars, the miracle cards, things like that. You can go for the fanatical mob route, which means you have to quickly get to the guard quarters in order to build those, which is one of the, just like with the Rift of Darkness for the summoning, it's one of the 2 highest locations on the board, but it can be extremely powerful for you, and everything is interconnected, so having more altars isn't just a way for you to win the game, it's a way for you to sort of not quite lock down an area, but make an area always easier for you to take over, a location always easier for you to take over. And also with fanatical mobs, you gain better benefits when you pass. So that's extremely important, because you're always going to be passing. You pass every round eventually. So it depends on, you can get this escalating amount of stuff every time. You get to use a location of a higher tier, essentially. So these are all interconnected, important things that you need to be worrying about. There's a huge variety of cards from 3 different decks of cards. Every single deity, or cult, I should say, has a different set of abilities, and then another set of abilities when you flip them over. And all of this is just to say that there's and 13 different locations on the board. All of this is to say that there is a ton of stuff going on in this game, a lot of variety. No 2 games are ever going to be the same, and yet I personally don't feel that this was an incredibly complex, overwhelmingly complex game. I think it's still, if you have the basics of what a worker placement game is, you just need to go that little extra bit to learn the ins and outs of how this game is unique, but it's still an intuitive thing, and with an experienced group of gamers, you can easily get this up and running quickly, learning it quickly, playing it quickly, and so on. And the game is constantly in motion, always moving, so it always feels fast. So, you don't have to take my word for any of this. If this seems like something that appeals to you or someone you know, go to the Kickstarter page. Follow the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Find out more information and hopefully consider backing the project. That is Cult from Cryptozoic Entertainment. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, for supporting our sponsors.